Greetings of the day. Welcome to the video lecture on microprocessor W2110. This course is meant for BTech third semester, Central University of Karnataka, which is of 1 credit. It carries 25 marks. Okay, let's move ahead with the content of the course is basically it deals with microprocessor and microcontroller like 8085 and 8051. Be discussing in detail about assembly language programming, arithmetic and logical operations, interrupts handling, interfaces for microcontrollers, analog to digital and digital to analog converters, interfaces for microcontroller, then application project. Okay, let's move with a microprocessor with lecture 1. This image is a image of a motherboard, a cabinet of a personal computer. The inside a cabinet we have a motherboard which is the heart of the personal computer. Okay, this motherboard why I'm showing is want to show the importance and the place of a microprocessor, which is the topic of the presentation. Okay, so this particular motherboard has lot of facilities, lot of discrete components. It has interfaces for IO devices through USB or through LAN or for audio video, and a lot of slots for connecting IO devices, probably like memories and all. We have some discrete components also, and among all these, the main heart of this motherboard again is this place, which is a place for a microprocessor. So at this place we have a microprocessor like Intel say Core i7 or so and so forth. Okay, when it comes to the Intel processor, the basic processor for manufactured by the Intel people was 8051. Okay, they started manufacturing a lot of microprocessor. Dates back to history. They started with 4004, which was a 4-bit wide microprocessor. Then after that they started with 8008, which was 8-bit microprocessor. Then they came up with the 8080, which was again 8-bit microprocessor. After that they came up with a very good architecture called 8085. Now because of the unique architectural features of 8085, this microprocessor, though it was in 1970s, but still it is used in the industry or even in the academics also. Okay, after that the Intel people started manufacturing 8086, again 80186, 80286, 386, Pentium, and so on till Core i7 and all. Okay, these microprocessors after 8085 were made for general purpose computing, for especially for personal computing and all. Okay, so let's go ahead with the microprocessor 8086. But before we go to 8086, let's look at a very basic concept of microprocessor, like what is there inside a microprocessor, and what is a machine language, what is assembly language, how they are formed, and how the blocks in it say microprocessor are presented, and how they will be functioning and how they can be programmed. Okay, let's look at a very basic circuit. This is a combination of XOR gate and a AND gate, and this is meant for a specific operation called to be single bit binary addition. It adds A and B, where A and B are of single bit, then it gives a sum and a carry. If you look at a truth table of this, there's A B sum and a carry. A 00011011 gives this as a sum and this as a carry. Okay, this is a very basic circuit, digital circuit. Now let's look at one more similar circuit with just addition of a NOT gate. This we call it to be binary subtraction. Is a binary subtractor. This subtract A and B and will give the difference and a borrow. This is the truth table for single bit subtraction. Okay, now I'll put both this together. This is 1-bit binary adder, this 1-bit binary subtractor. The only difference between these two will be the addition of this NOT gate. Okay, now I'll put these two together, connected by additional line called as a control line. Okay, so this subtractor is connected to this line through NOT gate, and this adder is connected to this line directly. That means assuming that these blocks will be enabled or disabled based on whether the logic is high or low. Assuming that a logic high will enable particular block and logic low will disable the particular block. Okay, so depending upon now we have a combination. If control is 1, then this block will be selected and this block will be deselected. So whatever the input lines are here, A and B, they are directly connected to this adder. Now this particular block, based on the logic available on this control, will function as an adder, function as adder. Okay, now if it is 0, if control line is 0 here, what happens, this 0 will be applied to this block and this will be disabled, and 0 after inverting it gives 1 and this will be enabled. When this is enabled, then this same A and B are connected to the subtractor. Now you get difference and a borrow here. It means using this control line I will be able to select either of this. That other way of saying, I can change the operations of these blocks depending upon this control line. Okay, now yeah, see here this A, B, control, S, C, R, D all I treat to be a register. Presently here you can treat these are all single bit registers. Okay, A is a single bit register, B is a single bit register, C is a single bit register, and so on. These red lines indicates the input wires. These input wires are connected to both the blocks. Similarly, the black lines here is a control wire, it's a control line. Okay, then blue lines here, they indicate the output wires. Okay, right. Then little closer look at this. Assuming the single bit registers, they will be identified using addresses. So everything inside a microprocessor, whether it is a memory location, registers or IO devices, all will be identified by certain addresses. Assuming that A will be identified by 00, B will be identified by 001, S will be identified by 010. That means if you want to write something to this, first you identify this address and write into this particular location. Okay, now I'll go to another little operation. Assume, yes, now this is set of ones and zeros. If you say 000, that means it is address of A, that means it is input operand, first input operand. The second is 001, then it is a B, which is second operand, so address of a second operand 001. Now this particular bit indicates it C, which is 1. When it is say 1, is going to be addition. Okay, that means using this 00, that means this will be enabled, 001, this will be enabled, then I'd say 1, so this will be enabled and this will be disabled. That means our adder will be enabled and subtractor will be disabled. After that, output will be 010. Where is 010? 010 is meant for sum, that is 1 bit register sum. Then 011, it is a carry. So if I convert this set of ones and zeros, then I'll get it as a D3. Now this is what is the basic understanding of a microprocessor. Now it may not be exactly, but to just give a notion about what a machine language is, how the blocks are connected inside a ALU of a microprocessor, and so on. Now you can treat this as these kind of blocks will be there inside a microprocessor, and this set of ones and zeros, that means this set of ones and zeros is meant for addition. The another, if I make this as just a 0, this will be a subtraction. So this set of ones and zeros is addition, another set of such ones and zeros is subtraction, and so on and so forth. So based on this set of ones and zeros, which is now very specific to this particular block, this is very important to understand. Okay, so if I change this here and connect NOT gate here, this will be reverse way. So this particular arrangement of these internal blocks are very specific to a microprocessor. That is why this set of ones and zeros make it is a machine language, right? That is why it is said as machine languages are specific to a microprocessor, right? There will be hundreds and hundreds of such set of ones and zeros, and each set of ones and zeros meant for a particular operation. That means one set of ones and zeros make one particular block as say enabled, others will be disabled, and some control unit and input lines and output units will be activated or deactivated depending upon control lines. Okay, so here to understand is this set of ones and zeros is meant for addition. You just simply change this to 0, that will be meant for a subtraction, and if you change the operands, it will be some other code, some destination, that also will be another code. Okay, so this set of ones and zeros make a machine language. So So this you can write in sequence. Okay, write some data to B, write some data to A, then you go for this particular set of ones and zeros, then execute this. That means we are going to add two numbers likewise. So some particular application can be written based on this using a sequence of this set of ones and zeros. Now we call that to be a machine language or programming microprocessor using machine language. Now there is a bit difficulty with say programming a microprocessor using a machine language, because a user has to remember that this set of ones and zeros made for a particular application. Okay, so to ease this, what is done is this set of ones and zeros converted into some hex code or some mnemonic will be given. Okay, this D0 is an opcode, I could say. Okay, now this D0 is meant for addition for a typical X processor. This may be E5 for addition in some other Y processor. Okay, this is a machine language. Now since it is difficult to remember one set of ones and zeros, to program a microcontroller using machine language, there was another language which was brought to called as a assembly language. So what is done in assembly language? This set of ones and zeros are given some mnemonics based on their functionality. Probably say if it is addition, this set of ones and zeros is for addition, then you say ADD. Okay, so ADD is a mnemonic. Then you could say this A and B. So you can say ADD A comma B. This kind of mnemonics form a assembly language. So microprocessor can be programmed using a machine language or using as a assembly language. Now again, to move ahead with, now to make a little bit more easy for developing an application, there was a concept called as a high level language like C. Even C also can be used to program microprocessors and a microcontroller. So depending upon the requirement, depending upon the applications, a user is free to program to write an application for microprocessors or a microcontroller, either using machine language or using assembly language or using a high level language. Okay, so this is what is the basics of a microprocessor. Let's go ahead with the definition of a microprocessor. In a broader sense, microprocessor, it is a multi-purpose programmable logic device that takes in numbers, perform arithmetic or logical operations according to the program stored in the memory, produces results, and either stores in memory or to output devices. So this sentence is a very generic definition of a microprocessor. Now let's go with one by one. So the first word says it is a multi-purpose. It means microprocessor can be used for more than one purpose, more than one application. It may be used for used in calculator, it can be used in computer, it can be used in any applications. Okay, thus this concept is clear. It is a multi-purpose. Now next is programmable logic device. It is a logic device because it works on logic set of ones and zeros. Now it is programmable because we can give instruction to a microprocessor to do whatever we want to do through this. Okay, that is why we call it to be programmable logic device. We can write one application, rather it will be more appropriate if you could say it is a reprogrammable logic device. We can write programs time and again using this microprocessor. Okay, then what it does is it takes in numbers, perform arithmetic and logical operations according to the fixed program stored in the memory according to the program. So it is based on the application. Then application has to be stored into the memory. Then this microprocessor takes the data, takes application from the memory, it decodes it, then performs certain operations by taking numbers from input and perform certain arithmetic or logical operations. Then after that it produces the result according to the instructions stored. Then those results either can be stored in the memory or it can be given to the output. This is a very basic and a generic definition of a microprocessor. Then microprocessor, this word can be separated, and you can say micro and a processor. Micro means small, processor means a device that processes whatever ones and zeros. Process means to manipulate, perform certain operation. That is why the name has come as microprocessor. It processes ones and zeros according to the instruction given to this. Since it is small, it would be microprocessor. Okay, so this is the internal architecture of very generic microprocessor. Any generic microprocessor will be having this particular say architecture. ALU stands for arithmetic and logical unit. We have certain set of register section, different working registers. These are all inside a chip, IC, a microprocessor. Then we have another set called as control and timing section. Then in order to have a communication with the peripheral world, we'll be having different buses called as address bus, data bus, and a control bus. Okay, now let's see what these each are. If you look at arithmetic and logic unit, this is the first block. These three blocks are very important. This is only a generic and a basic part. Different microprocessors will have this in different fashion. Okay, so arithmetic and logical unit, ALU, it execute arithmetics, additional multiplication, and logical operations like AND or XOR and so on. Okay, so this basically does manipulation, okay, operations. Then next is a control unit. This control unit generates sequence of control signals telling the ALU how to operate. Okay, the control unit may have even decoding unit also, right? Reads and executes microprograms stored in the ROM. So this particular block is responsible for taking the applications stored in the ROM or a RAM or basically memory and try to decode that particular instruction, and after that it generates some control signals and order either ALU, registers or these buses how to operate. So this decides about the functionality depending upon the instruction stored. Okay, then we have a register section, then a fast small memory for temporary storage during mathematical operations. When this ALU is adding some numbers or multiplying some numbers, doing some operation on numbers, then we need to have some temporary storage inside a microprocessor. We call that section to be a register section. These generally are very fast and small in numbers. Okay, so this is the basic part of any microprocessor. You take any microprocessor, they will have this three sections compulsorily, may have some addition also, but these are the basic thing. Then next, coming to the buses, let us see if a microprocessor need to interact with the external world. Definitely, like say for example interfacing a keyboard. If you want to type something in a WordPad, then you have to type that through a keyboard or through a mouse. Like, so these are IO devices, input output devices. Okay, so these that means microprocessor has to interact with the external world, right? So for that we'll be using buses. We call that bus to be. What is a bus? Bus is wires connecting memory or IO devices to a microprocessor. Then these buses, based on the functionality and the purpose, we have three different types of buses. Okay, we call it to be address bus, data bus, and control bus. The address buses are generally unidirectional. They identify peripherals and memory location. The major work of these buses, address bus, is to identify a location. Like say I said, can interface a keyboard to a microprocessor. So the keyboard will be having certain address, and it is the address bus which will be identifying a keyboard. After identifying a keyboard, then the data will be taken inside a microprocessor, or if it is a monitor, then data will be sent from a microprocessor to the monitor. Okay, so it is a unidirectional. It carries the data directly from microprocessor to the peripheral only, not a reverse way, because IO device will not have a capability to address internal part of a microprocessor. As it is unidirectional, this will identify a particular memory location or IO devices based on addresses. Okay, next is once the locations or memory locations or IO devices are identified, then it is a job now either to move a data from microprocessor to a memory or IO device, or data from memory or IO devices to the microprocessors. Hence we need a buses called as a data bus. They are generally bidirectional and they are meant to transfer the data, right? Next, we have very important part of a microprocessor is a control bus, right? Control buses are bidirectional. They are used to control internal and external operations of a microprocessor. Then control buses, synchronization of signals. These are the functionality. They generate timing signal, they generate control signals. So this, using control signal, timing signal and synchronization signals, we are able to even have a appropriate operation of a microprocessor. Okay, yeah. Now let's be with a very specific of 8085. 8085 is a microprocessor. Okay, 8085 is 8-bit microprocessor as it operates on 8 bits at a time. That is why it is actually we call it to be a width of a microprocessor. 8085 is 8-bit wide microprocessor, calling this is based on the width of the ALU inside a microprocessor, right? So the width of the ALU inside 8085 is 8-bit wide, and this capacity of ALU will decide the bit length of a microprocessor, and in turn this will decide about the number of data lines for a particular microprocessor. Hence I could say 8085, the ALU is of 8-bit wide, and hence it is 8-bit wide microprocessor, and it has 8 data lines. Okay, now, this microprocessor exhibits some unique characteristics, and this is the reason it still holds popularity among the microprocessors. Now, 8085 was first commercially successful microprocessor built by Intel people. Now, certain following features are there. 8085 8-bit data bus, then it has 16-bit address bus which can address up to 2 to the power of 16 64 kilobytes of memory. Then it has 16-bit program counter, the program counter, and it has 16-bit stack pointer. Then internally it has 6 8-bit registers. They can be arranged as pairs B, C, D, E, H, L. Okay, this will be very clear when we discuss about the architecture. Okay, now this operates with the plus 5 voltage and at a speed of 3.2 megahertz in a single clock. Okay, this is actually the pin diagram of 8051. It is a 40 pin IC, start numbering from 1 to 20 this side, 21 to 40 this side. Got to be 8085 is available as 40 pin DIP dual inline package. Okay, from pin number 1 and 2 are meant for connecting external clock, that it may be 3.2 megahertz. Then third pin is a reset out. Then we have a fourth and fifth pin called as SOD and SID, serial out data, serial in data. These are the two lines by which directly we can be communicating to peripherals using serial communication. This will take a data from serial out, will take a data from microprocessor to the peripheral, and from peripheral to microprocessor will be done by SID. Then this pin number 6 to we have 10. There are the interrupts. Okay, we have various categories of interrupts like trap, RST 7.5, 6.5, 5.5, INTR. So these are different interrupts of 8051. That means using external stimuli, we will be able to drag the attention of a microprocessor from its regular execution. Then this is interrupt acknowledgement. Once this you get some signal on INTR, then the interrupt has to be serviced. For that we have to acknowledge then IO device which is interrupting using this interrupt acknowledgement. Okay, next we have pin number 12 to pin number 19 got to be AD0 to AD7. These are address and data buses, address and data lines. Okay, so here AD0, it is address and data, right? So here what happens, to reduce the number of pins of a particular IC, these pins will be time multiplexed. The time multiplex meaning is, in the first case, these 12 to 19 will become as address lines, because to be A0 to A7. Then after the first clock, then once the peripheral or memory is identified, then this address will be latched. Then this 12 to 19 will become as data lines, because to be D0 to D7. So these lines are time multiplexed. Okay, then next we have VSS, that is ground, it is 20 pin. Then now from 21 to 28 we have A8 to A15, it is address lines. These are address lines. So 8085 has 16 address lines, that A0 to A15, or AD0 to AD7 and A8 to A15. Now these pins are not time multiplex, they are independent now. Then we have 29, 30 ALE, then we have write, read, then S0, S0, S1, then we have IO mode, ready, reset pin, clock, clock out, it is possible to take clock also outside to drive some other ICs. Then hold, HLDA, hold acknowledgement, hold. Then we have 8 pin to be 40th pin to be VCC. Okay, this is the pin diagram. When you want to develop a project based on your requirement, then we have to interface these using these pins. Okay, then let's go to internal block diagram of 8085. Okay, so here go with interrupts, right? Saying about interrupt is a facility which will drag the attention of a microprocessor from its regular routine, and it will be taken to a specialized routines called as interrupt service routine, ISR. So in 8085 we have 5 different types of interrupts. Trap, we have RST 7.5, 6.5, 5.5, then we have INTR. These are under the control of interrupt control. Then similarly, we can have a serial communication to the peripheral world using this facility, SID and SOD. This is serial in data and serial out data controlled by this. Then we have 8-bit internal data bus, and to this we have a specialized register called as an accumulator, some temporary registers, and this flag register called the PSW, program status word. All these are connected to ALU, and these again connected to internal data buses. So ALU will have accumulator. Part of this ALU comprise of the registers and temporary registers and the flags. Then the other part of that, we have instruction registers, instruction decoder, and these will be with the timing and control unit. This timing and control unit will generate the timing synchronization signal and control signals, and it controls the operation of this particular microprocessor. So instruction register will be under control of program counter. Program counter will go to particular memory location, get the data, and stores into instruction register. That instruction register gives that information or a data to instruction decoder, and instruction decoder gives information to timing and control unit based on what instruction was there, and accordingly this will generate control signals. Okay, then another set, we have a register section here, W, Z, B, C, D, E, H, L. Then these are all 8-bit registers. Okay, now BC, we can, this B is an independent 8-bit register, C is independent 8-bit register, D and D, E, H, L are all independent 8-bit register. Now it is possible even to combine these registers for a 16-bit operation, but the combination is specific. Then B can be combined with C, equal to be BC pair. Similarly, D can be combined with E, equal to be DE pair. Then H can be combined with L, equal to be HL pair. So these are the working registers. These are available for the programmers. Whereas W and Z, these are again 8-bit wide, but they are not used by the programmer, but it is used by a microprocessor internally to store a temporary result. Okay. Then this is SP. It is a 16-bit say stack pointer. Is a program counter, is also 16-bit. Then increment, decrement. You have address buffer. We have data and address buffer here. Okay. So this is all about the internal architecture of 8051. Now let's go in detail whatever was there in architecture. Right, registers, these are nothing but a set of flip-flops used to hold or store the data. It has, that means 8085 has 16-bit 6 general purpose registers. They are B, C, D, E, H and L. These registers can be combined to form pairs like B, C, D, E and HL in order to execute 16-bit operation. These registers are programmable, hence can be accessed by the programmer to transfer or operate on the data by making use of instructions. Now we have a temporary registers like W and Z. These registers are used by the ALU to store the data on temporary basis. These are not accessed by the programmer, W and Z. Okay, these are not accessed by the programmer, but it is accessed by the ALU. These are 8-bit wide and holds the operand and provides it to the ALU for program execution. Then the immediate results of ALU are also stored in these registers. Okay. Then next come to a program counter. So very important registers. These two are very important registers. Like program counter, it is basically it is actually a special purpose register. Okay, it is a 16-bit wide. It is used to store the memory location of the instruction to be performed. It means the application has to be stored somewhere in the memory. right? So that storing of application will not serve a purpose. That has to be brought inside a microprocessor decode unit. Okay, it is the program counter which is responsible for taking the instruction from the memory and giving it to, or fetching it to, the decoding unit of a microprocessor. So it is used to store the memory location of the instruction to be performed. It points to the first instruction. Then after opcode fetch, once it gets the first instruction from the memory, it automatically gets incremented and point to the next memory location from where it has to again retrieve the opcode. Thus it provides sequencing of the program to be executed. So this is very important register for execution. Okay, then we have a stack pointer. It is also a 16-bit wide register as a part of memory. The data stored in the stack in serial format, last in first out. So a dedicated part of memory can be reserved as a stack memory. It has its own functionality. Little later we'll be discussing about it. But here that part of a memory will be pointed out by a stack pointer register. Okay, it points to the top of the stack. Say the stack pointer stores the address of the last data element stored in the stack. So whenever new data is added in the stack, then stack pointer starts pointing towards the very next memory location. Okay, it will be incremented by 1 and points to the next location. So as against, when the data element is removed from the stack, the stack pointer points to the previously occupied memory location. Oh, it gets decrement likewise. Okay, coming to another important register is accumulator. It is 8-bit register that stores the result of the operation performed by the ALU. So accumulator of 8085 work closely with ALU, arithmetic and logical unit. This is also called as register A. It's very important register. Then next, so very important register is a flag. We call it to be program status word, PSW. PSW of 808Y is again 8-bit wide. Okay, it is like say we have first bit D0 is CY, it is a carry flag. D1 nothing, D2 parity flag, D4 it is auxiliary carry, D6 is 0 flag, and D7 is a sign flag. If you look at this carry flag CY D0 set to 1 if carry is generated, otherwise it becomes reset, that is to be 0. So the purpose of this flag register or program status word is it indicates the condition of a microprocessor after certain operations. Okay, it reflects what was the previous operation was. It indicates, say for example, if you are adding some number, if that addition of two numbers is generating certain carry or not. If it is generating certain carry, then this particular location will be enabled. It has some data. This indicates, this shows the status of the previous addition. Like say this carry flag will be set to 1 if carry is generated, otherwise it becomes 0. Okay, like similarly the D3, it is third bit of PSW parity. It's a parity flag. It is set to 1 if even number of 1 bits is the otherwise saying is in the result. Once you add two numbers in the ALU, then the resultant, if the result is having even number of ones, it will be set to 1, otherwise it will be 0. If odd number of ones are there in the result, that will be reset. If even number of ones are there in the result, this will be set. So by at the end of this operation, by checking this particular flag, we will come to know, yes, there are even number of ones in a particular result. Okay, the next is fifth bit. It is auxiliary carry flag. One carry out from bit 3 on addition or a borrow into bit 3. If you are adding two 8-bit numbers, if there is a carry from 4th bit to 5th bit, okay, like say just assume this is an operand. Now if there is a carry from this bit to this bit, then this flag will be set. If there is no carry from this to this, then it will be reset. Now similarly, another flag is 0 flag. This flag will be set to 0 if the result is 0, else it will not be set to 0. Else it will be set to 0. If result is 0, then this flag register will be set to 1. If result is non-zero, then flag will be set to 0. Okay, and similarly sign flag set to 1. This particular flag will be high if MSB is 1. That means while operating, if the 8th bit of an operand, if the 8th bit of a result is occupied by 1, then this indicates it's a sign flag, it's a negative number. Okay, then if it is not occupied, if it is not 1, then it will be 0, indicating it is a positive number. So this will be very helpful in case of checking the status and controlling the operation of a microprocessor. Okay. Yeah, now yes, I'll end here. Just to revise what a microprocessor is, just go back to why a microprocessor is a multi-purpose programmable logic device that takes in numbers, perform arithmetic or logical operations according to the program stored in the memory, produces a result, and either stores in memory or output device. Okay, this is the functionality of a microprocessor. This is the internal block diagram of a microprocessor. There are function buses, and these are the features of 8085. 8085 has got a unique characteristics, hence it is still popular and used by even in case of making applications. This is a pin diagram, is internal block diagram of 8085, and these are the register, temporary registers, program counter, stack pointer, accumulator, flag register. Okay, now the next video will be looking at microcontrollers. Okay, thank you for